Hi, how's it going? I'm Marlene. Thanks for wandering by. Welcome or welcome back to Decan Walk 2023. For those of you that don't know, this hashtag I created when I started a Decan Walk practice back in March of this year, starting with Aries season. Basically, I have been walking through, traveling through the zodiacal wheel of the year and following according to traditional Western astrology and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Each zodiac sign is split into 3 pieces, which are called decans. They make up 10 degrees, roughly about 10 days, and each of these have tarot correspondences in the minor cards of the tarot, as well as major cards that have astrological correspondences as well. So what we've been doing in Decan Walk is going through each decan and taking a look at those astrology and tarot correspondences, putting them together and thinking and talking about them. So for those of you that would like to find out more, please visit my description box below. I have a playlist where I have the entire collection of the Decan Walk videos so far, and also some folks who have joined in the hashtag, other members of the community that have created Decan videos along the way. I also leave links to all of the resources that I show in my Decan videos here, so books and decks and things, but I also include an entire list of free resources like blogs, podcasts, things like that, that you can get for free. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to Libra season. So this next decan, which we'll get to in just a moment, is really cool because we're stepping into a new decan, but we're also stepping into a new zodiac sign, Libra. But with Libra, we are now beginning the second half of the zodiacal year. So the first 6 zodiac signs from Aries to Virgo represents the first half of the year, and now the second half, so spring and summer, and now we're stepping into the second half from Libra through Pisces. We're going to be doing fall and winter, at least in the northern hemisphere. It would be spring and summer, and fall and winter running that way. So in any case, let's talk a little bit, before we get into the Decan card itself, let's talk a little bit about the zodiac sign of Libra. I've been using this book from the Library of Esoterica by Tashin, the astrology volume, to kind of get my feet wet in terms of learning just a little bit about each of these, the zodiac signs. There's also a section on planets in here, but this is a really great resource because it has such beautiful artwork that kind of gives me, that visual guide to get to know the zodiac sign. So we have Libra, which is from September 23rd through October 22nd, and this is the glyph for Libra. The planetary ruler of Libra is Venus, and its natural house is the 7th house. And I've only just now started kind of incorporating the houses in my Decan study. So, and the relationship, which is funny that I said relationship because of Libra. Anyway, because of the 7th house. I've been kind of just since the last decan, incorporating the idea of what that house is for the particular decan, which I just, it's just another piece, another little element that's fun. So the duality is positive or masculine, and then Libra is associated with the element of air. The quality is cardinal, so that is its modality as well. Modality, quality, it means that it is the first sign in its season, and in the northern hemisphere, that is the fall season. Its polarity is Aries, so I guess that means that's the opposite sign. Yeah, Yeah, because if Aries begins the spring, Libra begins the fall. So they're 180 degrees, whatever the exact opposite, not 360, because that would be the whole thing. So 180 degrees away from each other on the zodiacal wheel. It relates to the Justice card in tarot, and a metal that it is associated with is copper. There's lots of beautiful artwork in this book. That's really the most wonderful thing about it. But let's look at, I just like to read the little blurbs from here. So, imaginative equilibrium. Equilibrium. Yeah, we had on our card here the word balance, which is, Libra is the scales. So we think of balance. That's a key word that's pretty pervasive throughout everything I've ever read having to do with Libra, and also having to do with the Justice card. So that's interesting. So here we have, it says, as the most socially involved of all signs. That's so interesting. I guess I didn't know that about Libra. My mom's a Libra, but I didn't know that Libras are socially involved. And that makes sense now with putting in the 7th house. Here, I'll just bring that out now. So the 7th house represents relationships and partnerships. So this is all, these cards are from the Star Codes Astro Oracle, which I've shown you guys before if you've been around. So this is the Star Codes Astro Oracle. I grabbed the Libra card, I grabbed the 7th house, and then I also grabbed Venus, because Venus is the planetary ruler of Libra. But I find that really interesting that Libra is really social, and that makes sense. Like, I'm learning more about the signs as we go. Anyway, let's read this blurb. As the most socially involved of all signs, Libra symbolizes the need of the mature human being to take their place in the world. Libra's symbol, the scales, emphasizes the need for balance in life. And that's from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider. Interesting. So I'm not gonna go through this entire bit on Libra, but there's just really beautiful artwork, and each of the pieces of art has a little blurb that goes along with it. So there's not like a lot of text in this book, but I really do love the artwork. So this is a card from my friend Lennon Smith. She made a deck called the Quintessential Thoth Tarot, which I've shown here on the channel before. I'll leave links to everything below as usual. But she also included the 12 zodiac signs, a card for each of the 12 zodiac signs. And she, in order to make them, from what I remember her saying, in order to create these images, she based it on Aleister Crowley's description of the zodiac signs. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Did she say it was in the book 777? I'll double check. But anyway, so that's the Libra card, which I think is cool to have out. I don't actually know what Aleister Crowley's description of Libra is. I should do my homework better and find that out. But in any case, another one of the books that I like to use to just get a, like a quick, succinct description of the zodiac sign is the guidebook that comes with the deck called Karma Cards by Monty Farber. And I have the vintage version, but this is also the vintage printing. But this is this deck, Karma Cards, is still available. So let's talk about Libra, the scales. The astrological symbol is the balanced scales. We already said September 24th to October 23rd. The scales of Libra, one of the few signs of the zodiac that is neither human nor animal. I thought sometimes you just know things but don't even think of things like that. And then I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. So it reminds us that the time of Libra was when the harvest was weighed and measured against other years and other farmers. So Monty Farber, and I'm assuming a lot of other Western astrologers or Western astrology texts, discusses the season, because it's very much a seasonal system. And the fall harvest end of summer, fall, beginning of fall harvest is what we're referencing here. So reminds us that the time of Libra was when the harvest was weighed and measured against other years and other farmers. Public declarations of contractual partnerships were made and fulfilled as goods were exchanged for their fair market value. But the perfect balance of the Libra and Scales was a reminder that the first 6 warming full moons of the lunar year had passed, and that the challenges of the next 6 cooling full moons were at hand. Oh, I don't know. This makes me want to study moon stuff that I don't know. But I know that there's like specific kinds of full moons, and I've only just like started looking at that because I was working with the Queen of the Moon Oracle. I'm going to take a look at that. So the first 6 and then the next 6. Interesting. So our ancestors also knew that a balanced, loving relationship was valuable on those cooling nights. That's so interesting. So associations for Libra. Libra rules relationships, partnerships, coming before the public, contracts, diplomacy, harmony and balance, art, beauty, and marriage. The parts of the body ruled by Libra are the diaphragm and kidneys, placed at the middle of our bodies. People born during the sign of Libra function best when in pursuit of harmony and balance. And that's really cool. I like that a lot. I like that quite a bit. And then we like to go to our friend now. These are they're friends to me. I've been working with them for a while. Corinne Kenner, and visit what she has to say about the Libra card being the Justice, or about the Libra sign being the Justice card. So here's some things from Corinne Kenner. So it's immediately she starts talking about the goddess of justice. So I think we need to just bring the Justice card out here already and take a look at it. So from the Divine Deccan Tarot, which is another deck that I often show you guys, we have your Rider-Waite-Smith depiction of the Justice card. So we have on here the 7th house, Cardinal Air, Justice. Okay, so here are our Libra cards. So she immediately starts talking about the goddess of justice, assuming many forms. So Ma'at, yeah, that's what I highlighted, because Ma'at, the Egyptian goddess of truth, was the embodiment of cosmic order. She was responsible for ensuring that the universe followed a consistent, predictable set of rules. So Libra, along with all these other things that we're learning so far about Libra, being involved in balance and fairness, the 7th house, relationships. And then also, because Libra is ruled by Venus, we have, that kind of love, romance, beauty aspect to it, especially beauty aspect to her as well. Her, I say, because Lady Justice, and the goddesses that are associated with this particular sign. Libra is skilled at solving problems, compromising, and arranging diplomatic solutions for any conflict. Occasionally, Libras need to see both sides of an issue, so can make it seem indecisive. So now we're getting close to what is going to feel like our Deccan card. Its charm, however, makes up for it. So Libras are also very charming, social people. I didn't think of that. It's so funny because I'm a Gemini and an air sign as well. So I don't know, it's just really cool. Librans have an innate need to balance themselves through relationships with others. They're typically friendly, gregarious, and charming. So in the tarot, the Empress is representative of Venus, right? So Venus is the planetary ruler of Libra. And so Corinne Kenner says that the combination of Venus's influence on Libra It lends a caring, nurturing quality to Libra's role as an emissary of balance and equanimity. So it sort of softens the Justice card to me in a way. So yeah, so that's just a little bit, for us to get to know Libra now that we've entered this new zodiac sign. And I'll try to continue to do this every time we enter a new zodiac sign to give you a little bit of background about that particular sign and the tarot card that it corresponds to. But now let's go ahead and get into our Deccan card for Libra 1. All right, and so here we are in the first decan of Libra, and the card that is associated with this decan is the Two of Swords, okay? And so here we have from the Divine Decan Tarot our Two of Swords, and you can see it's Moon in Libra. And we already established that Libra is a cardinal air sign. So it's at the very beginning of the season, which in the Northern Hemisphere is the fall season. It is the first decan of Libra, and it spans from September 23rd through October 2nd. Two of Swords, we have our Rider-Waite-Smith depiction, and then underneath here is the Hermetic title, which is Peace Restored. So it's the Lord of Peace Restored. So super cool. So we have our depiction here, and then as we've already taken a look at, Libra is associated with the major card Justice in the tarot, and then the moon, which we've seen before in our Decan studies, is associated with the High Priestess. The High Priestess is associated with the moon. So we have moon in Libra. So we have these two forces coming together in the Two of Swords. Before we get into what all that means, I also brought out the moon card from the Star Codes Astro Oracle, and the moon card is gorgeous. I love this. I love this deck. But we have our keyword for Libra, which is balance, and then we have our keyword for the moon here, which is perception. And I really like that as a keyword for the moon. You could have lots of different keywords for the moon, but I like that one. Let's take a look also at some other decks. Here we have the Thoth Tarot, which is one of my favorite decks, as you may know. And I actually really, really love the sword suit in the Thoth, and I really, really love this particular depiction of the card and the Two of Swords. So we have the title, the Hermetic title, shortened just to peace here for the Two of Swords. And then we have for our Justice equivalent in the Thoth Tarot is adjustment, which I think there's nuances that make it just a little bit different to the way that Justice is depicted, but there's still things that are very similar about the two cards. And then we have over here our High Priestess. And then as always, or often, I like to look at the colors. And one of these days, I'm going to definitely study the colors of the tarot, especially in the Thoth. But you can see these blues here, the blues in the lotus flower in the center, and then you have your greens and yellows kind of coming together. I really, really love taking a look at the color story here. So that's our depiction in the Thoth Tarot. And here we have our depiction of Moon in Libra, the Two of Air, from this deck, which I've been showing you guys along the way, called the Eighth House Tarot. And have I ever shown you guys the backs of this? I think I might have at one point. They're not my favorites, but anyway. Here is the Two of Air, Moon in Libra. And so this is a really cool depiction. This is much more, I think, nodding to our Waite-Smith interpretation with the blindfolded person. But we do have these celestial, moon. We have these moons, these orbs that are, the two being held out by hands, which I think is really cool. I like that quite a bit. We have our Libra card, which is pretty minimalist and straightforward with a hand holding the scales. I really like that. And then we've seen this card before because we have worked with the High Priestess before, the moon, who's associated with the moon. And we have these like this water and endless doorways with the luminary here in the center. And it's like this, yeah, it looks like these endless, this like portal or endless doorways heading, you know, through the subconscious, into the world of illusion and mystery. Who knows? You can follow that gateway, you know, in the world of dreams and so on. And that, I think that's a really good representation for the moon here. And I really like the 8th house tarot. I do think that this really sticks to a Waite Smith kind of leaning, you know, because we have justice and not adjustment here as well. But really cool cards. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the books that I study as we go through the Decan Walk. All right, so let's visit with our buddy, T. Susan Chang. I'm calling everybody our buddies now, but like I've literally been working on this for 6 months, so I feel very closely, you know, like I've been working very closely with these books. So let's take a look at what Susan Chang had to say about this particular deck. So Susan Chang calls this Deccan blind equilibrium. And she says that few minors, and I agree with her, that few minor cards show as clear a blend of their corresponding majors as the Two of Swords does. In Pamela Coleman Smith's image, we see the moon and the waters of the High Priestess. Meanwhile, Justice's sword and scales have transformed into two balanced swords. So it's really easy for us to see these two, because I always feel like, or not always, but what I've been feeling like along this way is that I've been imagining this like meeting or marriage, or, you know, even more than that, between the two majors. And especially when they're people, I like to think of like the conversations between these that resulted in this. And that's one of the things that I've done often with the High Priestess, especially. Probably because I just want to imagine what it's like to talk to the High Priestess. But something that I think is really interesting that Susan Chang points out is that the traditional blindfold of justice, it's not pictured in the Justice card, but we see it then here in the Two of Swords. And also the bench is here from the Justice card. So we see the Justice bench here. And so she says, and she's done this before, she said that she calls the Two of Swords the Little Priestess. And it's funny because we saw her call the Nine of Pentacles the Little Empress, and I kind of like that. So something that we need to pay attention to here are the waters, and that's very tied to the High Priestess. And the waters that are behind her, and the moon obviously is tied to the tides, and they seem to extend, right? So what she's suggesting is that the waters are extending from here through this card, as a shore front into the background of the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords, lots of different things about the Two of Swords that folks, you know, immediately come up with. Keywords for the Two of Swords: crossroads, decisions. And I was waiting when I was reading Chang to hear those particular keywords come up, but they didn't at first. In fact, she was talking more about the meditative state, and that's something that also comes up as part of this card, this like meditative state, because of the blindfolds. So the Two of Swords too can be the meditative state that helps us find peaceful refuge from the mental chatter of our conscious minds. Because remember, we're talking about this card being the Lord of Peace Restored. And I think that is, another way that we look at the card in terms of its Thoth, version of it. She also talks about how this particular Decan, then the Two of Swords, coincides with the fall equinox in the northern hemisphere, right? And so it would be the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere. So this is at this moment in the northern hemisphere is when day and night are equally balanced in the scales of Libra. So that's another very seasonal tie-in with this particular card. So all the twos, which I thought was cool, is that she told us that all the twos correspond to solstices and equinoxes. And she goes on to, to describe each of them. As polarity or opposite sign is Aries. The Two of Wands would be the opposite here of the Two of Swords. The Two of Wands is the beginning of the spring equinox, and the Two of Swords marks the beginning of the fall equinox. What she's saying is Aries is the sign of the self, which it is. We talked about Aries and its I am and all that kind of thing. So then Libra represents, with its scales, Libra is representing the recognition of the other, which makes sense too when we were talking about the seventh house, right? And it being about partnerships and relationships. That idea, that two, that other, in this case, in the Two of Swords, I think is really cool. She says about the Two of Swords combines the number of the other, two, with the sign of the other, Libra, and the element of thought, which is the air and swords. So when she thinks of this card, I often think of a mind making room for another's point of view. A mind making room for another's point of view. And it was at this point I made note of the key words that I often hear in relationship to the Two of Swords are like this crossroads and decision. You can see that influence of, the other and that sort of real decision making piece, and I feel like comes with this Libra energy. And then the moon energy is giving us that peace of mind. She also talks about how this card is very much feeling like a, or that peace of mind, that meditative quality with the waters of the High Priestess, and the influence of the moon on the card with its mystery and illusions and dreams and that kind of a state, And she also talks about it being a symbol for initiation with the blindfold being on. It's the mind. She talks about the mind in relationship, in comparison to the moon. The mind is, it's something that changes. And it waxes and wanes, thoughts. So we're in the suit of air. So we're in the intellect, in communication and thoughts, in the mind. We're in the suit of the mind. And so the mind can change. So she goes over all of those different kind of ideas, having to do with equilibrium, this balance, and that ties into the Libra. It's really not difficult to see these influences on this card. I think there's just a plethora of different places in which to go with thinking about it. You see the influence, you see the little High Priestess, right? And kind of the little Justice card all here in one. You see all of those things kind of coming together. And I think it's just, I highlighted and wrote like crazy because there's just so much, so many different places to go in here. She talks about equilibrium. She talks about the difference between the adjustment card and the adjustment card and the justice card. And I think she points out the difference being that the way that Crowley talks about adjustment is the rules and the law of nature, and it's like bigger picture, not just human, but like the laws of the universe really, and like and just the natural world, versus the justice card feels, at least this is my takeaway from it, that the justice card feels much more connected to humans and humanity and the laws of human beings, which I guess, both to me ring true in different ways, So that's how she kind of separated those two. And then, overall, what I wrote down, some specific like themes that stood out to me coming from Chang, and piecing this all together is peace of mind and opposing view, having preconceptions, two breaths is another piece that she talked about in there, and silence. And talking about what you can do for peace of mind. And what's interesting, you guys, is that I'm a poet, and in Susan Chang's book 36 Secrets, she ends each of her chapters with a poem, and I have not mentioned that once. Maybe I've mentioned that they're in here, but I have not spent time with you like talking about them, which I think is really funny. But this one I really enjoyed. So she put in her book a poem by Jose Garcia Villa called Invisible, and it reads, "My body is a bottle of white glass. Why has not somebody poured red wine into me that I should become beautiful? My body is a green leaf. Why have I not dried that I should blow away to infinity with many winds?" So I really like that. There's this two different ways to look at the body, and there's the sense of beauty here that we get from the ruling planet Venus, and there's also the element of air, which is brought in beautifully. Kenner's write-up of the Two of Swords is much more succinct and pretty, so if you don't go through Susan Chang's, which is a little bit more involved about the Deccan, if you read about the Deccan in tarot and astrology, I think you get a really good basic understanding of it. Okay, so what she says about this card, and specifically the Waite Smith version of it, is that most renditions of this card feature a young woman seated along a shoreline, contemplating a difficult choice between two extremes. So that's what we hear most frequently. And it was interesting to me that Chang didn't say that immediately. So during the first 10 days of the month, Libra is ruled by the moon, the heavenly orb of intuition, not reason. That's our high priestess, right? So while the woman in the card is focused on a rational and balanced discernment, she's blindfolded and forced to rely on her intuition in order to come to a decision. So the woman in the card resembles a younger version of the goddess of justice, which is funny because Chang relates her to the little high priestess. Kenner relates her to the justice card. So I think I see her there. And I feel this card especially is very goddess, like lots of goddess energy here, I think. So the Golden Dawn designers of this card called the moon in Libra Lord of Peace Restored, because the moon graces Libra with the gift of reflection, acceptance, and understanding, which I like that. I like that a lot. So we talked about the 7th house of relationships, which she brings Corinne Kenner talks about. She talks about that we're halfway in the halfway point of the Wheel of the Year. And she also talks about the symbolism of the blindfold, suggesting the search for inner peace and understanding. So then you know, that's where this card comes in as well, right? The Lord of Peace restored. So she really like kind of succinctly puts everything together. So let's bring out all of our Thoth cards and take a look at what Angelus Arian has to say. Angelus Arian, probably now my favorite book on the Thoth. I gotta say, other than like the Book of Thoth itself, but my favorite like kind of interpreter of the Thoth tarot is Angelus Arian. I really just love this book, and it's like falling apart. I've been in it so much. So Angelus Arian talks about the Two of Swords and she says it represents peace of mind. It is a picture of the meditative mind, or the mind that has made a choice either between two issues, two situations, or two people, all of which is represented by the two swords piercing the blue lotus blossom of wisdom. So I think that's really cool. And you can see how now when you know the astrology, when you take into account, you know, the major cards that you have in here, you see it come together. That's the coolest piece of this for me. All right, so she talks about astrologically what this card, represents. So the Two of Swords is Moon in Libra, which is symbolized by the two small swords. You can see, all right, so one at the top of the cards holds a crescent moon. So you can see that on the Thoth card. And then down here on the sword at the bottom, you see the glyph of Libra. The crescent moon indicates that at a deep subconscious place, there is a sense of balance and peace, which is signified by the Libra symbol. So the moon is like that innermost piece, and then the Libra is where that balance comes in. It's peace of mind restored. This is a piece that goes to a very deep spiritual place, according to Angelus Arian, which is represented by the yellow on the card. Oh, so she's talking about colors too. I know I highlighted this. And a piece that is renewing and regenerating, which is represented by the green on this card. Let's bring everybody back out here. Our Two of Swords, Libra, and the High Priestess. And like I said, I feel like in my study here, it's easy to see these goddesses, really it feels like these goddesses, these archetypes coming together in the Two of Swords. And those ideas, abound. The decision making, the initiation, the intuition, with your blindfold on, really going inside, right? In the moon and High Priestess way, really delving internally in order to decide, to find peace, to meditate. And then all of this energy here with Libra and it being the sign of the other, right? And the seventh house and Venus, right? Coming into play here with our Empress card too. And that being part of, relationships and fairness and balance and equality and equilibrium. Equilibrium really feels like the word, that gets placed in here. And the rules of, the laws of nature that adjust themselves. It's like almost like for me, the survival of the fittest kind of idea lives inside the adjustment card. But anyway, there's all of these different ideas in here. You can see it. And when I started reading it, it was just like, oh, well, yeah, of course. But it's just so cool to then put that energy, give it a name along with the high priestess and the moon, and give it a name, with Libra adjustment, and, over here with the house and Venus, and to put a name to those energies, kind of commingling and creating this space here with our Two of Swords. So I think that's it. I think I've covered it. I think this one is, a lot less, it's a lot less grounding, hardy har har, than our last Decan. Our last zodiac sign that we were in, all three of the last decans were Earth, so we were much more grounded. And here we are kind of floating up into the air again and the ether. And we are in this like otherworldly realm with our high priestess. We are behind our eyelids. I could not relate more to a person in the tarot than a blindfolded person, because I live behind my eyelids quite a bit. So I think that's it. And I think it's really cool that now we're kind of floaty, and we'll maybe be kind of floaty for the next couple of cards. And the next card is going to be really interesting to do, because we'll be doing the Three of Swords next. But as always, I have created a spread for you guys and myself that I have linked as a PDF to you down below in the description box. And I will also be posting that likely on my, or definitely in the Boho Tarot Facebook group. I've also been posting some of my Decan readings on my Instagram if you're interested in following me there. But yeah, that's it. That we did it. This is our moon in Libra, our Two of Swords. And I thank you all so much for sticking around with me. I hope that you all have a beautiful, wonderful first Decan of Libra, and a beautiful, wonderful day.